Hi all, this is Miss Sarah from Yukon Extension, and today as part of our Adventures in Agriculture summer program, we're going to be learning how to make wool dryer balls. In your kit, you should find a handful of undyed wool, a small portion of dyed wool, and a Farm and Connection card that talks about wool properties and sheep production. So today I'm at the New England County Extension Center, and we are going to be dyeing the undyed wool that I have here a nice royal blue. So at this point, this fleece has already been washed with detergent soap and it's been left out to dry. So this wool is from my flock of sheep, and this is from a Southdown sheep, so that's a breed of sheep that is used for meat production primarily. But the fleece on Southdowns is nice and dense and it's super soft. So it should be a good fleece to use for our purposes. And you'll also find in your fleece some pieces of hay or some other pieces of organic matter. And this is actually called vegetable matter when you're talking about fleece. So this is not an ideal part of a sheep's fleece. We want to minimize the vegetable matter that we find in our wool. But because we are using this just for educational purposes, we're going to pick out as much of the vegetable matter as we can, but if there's still some left over, that is a-okay. So the wool dryer balls that we're going to be making are smaller than normal dryer balls, and I do not recommend that you put them in your actual drying machine, as they're going to be a little bit too small for that purpose. But you can add them to a piece of clothing, you can make them into a necklace or a bracelet. It's completely up to you how you use your wool dryer ball. So I have my pot of water on the stove and it's almost at a boil, which is the perfect temperature to add my ingredients. So in addition to water, I've also added a cup of vinegar and some dish detergent. So the detergent is going to help to separate any of the remaining oil that is on the fiber. So the sheep produces a waxy substance called lanolin, and this lanolin helps to protect the fleece from the weather and other outside and external elements. So it's very useful when it's on the sheep, but once we shear the sheep, we want to remove that lanolin so that the dye can reach the fiber and so that it's not as oily and waxy, because that's not ideal if you were to wear the fleece as a sweater or mittens, etc. So like I said, I have already washed this fleece that we're working with to remove the lanolin, but I'm going to add some in my pot just to catch any remaining substance. And the vinegar that I have added is serving as a binding agent, so it's going to help the synthetic dye bind to the wool fibers, and so it's going to help to maintain the color, and we're going to lose less color after we wash the dyed fiber. So if you were to make a wool dryer ball and put it in your dryer, you wouldn't want any of the remaining color that's left after we wash it to be within the fiber, because then it's going to stain your clothes. So those are two things that I have already done. Based on the dye that I am using, I looked at the safety data sheets. I don't need to be wearing gloves, I don't need to be wearing eyeglasses, and I don't need to be wearing a mask. But because we are working with a dye that might stain skin, I am going to put on my gloves. These are special gloves that I use for dyeing fiber, and this is also a pot that I use specifically for dyeing. So I wouldn't put food in here, and I wouldn't eat anything that came from this pot. I only use it with my synthetic dye. So I am going to do this a little bit backwards today because we don't have anything to collect the vapors. So I'm going to put my fleece into the water first and let it soak and heat up, and then I'm going to move outside and add my synthetic dye so that I'm not breathing anything in that I shouldn't be. So I filled this up pretty high, and we might have to do this in 2 batches. But I'm just going to add some fiber. I'm going to use my tongs to submerge it. And it looks like there's still space, so I'm going to add a little bit more. The reason that the fiber clings to itself like this is because of the scales on the wool. They grab to each other when the individual pieces are moved in opposite directions. So I don't want to fill it too high that there's fleece sticking up above the water, but it will kind of float to the top a little bit. So I'm just going to keep sticking it down. And I'm going to stir it a little bit and make sure that everything is all mixed well together. And I'm going to leave it for a little bit to heat up. So I brought my pot outside with my wool in it, and it's still really hot, and I need to move fast because I don't want it to cool down, because it binds to the fiber best. The synthetic dye binds to the fiber best when it's hot. So I have added some additional protection with this dark colored shirt, and now I'm going to take my dye and I'm going to add it to my fiber. And I'm just going to guesstimate because I wasn't able to weigh the fiber first. So we're going to start with that, and we can always add more if it seems too light. So I'm going to mix, and I'm going to mix for 10 minutes to start, and we'll see how it looks from there. So you can already see how the fiber has changed color. Started out white, and now it is this nice rich blue. And I want to mix it really well because I want to make sure that I have all of the wool dyed. So it looks really dark in the pot, but when I lift it out, you can see that it's a little bit lighter. And when we wash it out, after it's finished soaking, it's going to lose some color too, and that is how things usually go, so it's not unusual. It's a common occurrence. But these first 10 minutes are the most important part for dyeing. So now the fiber is a really pretty royal blue, and I've pulled it out of the dye pot, and I'm going to rinse it now with some cold water. And then after I rinse it with cold water, I'm going to rinse it again with a little bit of warm water and dish detergent, and this should help set the color. So I have finished dyeing and rinsing and washing all of this beautiful blue wool. So it's sitting in this pot because it's going to get dried out in the sun. But I'm going to show you how to make your wool dryer ball. So I've started with some water in this bucket. You can either plug the sink and wash it in the sink, you can wash it in the water, or you can wash it and work it in a bucket. So it's completely up to you. I am going to use this bucket. We're going to start with this dish soap that you should have received in your kit. And I'm going to dump a little bit in here, about half, into my bucket. Depends how much water you have. And I want to agitate the water so I have my bubbles. So I'm going to start, I personally am going to start with my white fiber. I'm going to get it wet, get it soapy. And then I'm just going to start rolling it in a ball. Getting it wet and rolling it in a ball. It takes a little bit. Just keep working it. Apply pressure to your hands when you're rolling to kind of squeeze it together. And I don't have enough soap, so now I'm going to add some of that directly to my dryer ball. So now it's sudsy, and I'm just going to keep rolling. So I'm going to keep rolling, and as you can see, it's less fluffy and it started to form this ball-like shape, which is good. There are different pieces of the wool ball getting felted to each other, and they're still a little bit fragmented, but the longer we keep going, the easier it's going to be. So now that I've gotten a semblance of a shape, I'm going to add some of the blue fiber. So I'm going to get that soapy. Wrap it around there, and I'm going to keep rolling. Really have to apply some pressure. Uh-oh, looks like I've got two balls going here, so I'm going to just squish that back in. Might be easier to start with your blue and your white mixed. You can get it wet every once in a while. Keep going. So I've been working on my dryer ball for a while now. I keep rolling it in my hands. I've been dunking it, adding soap. I've been running it under the hot water. So those are some techniques that you can use to continue to felt your dryer ball. And the longer you roll it for, the tighter it's going to be. So I still have some creases in mine, but I'm just going to keep working at it. And so you can continue to roll your ball until you are satisfied with the final product. It is completely up to you how tight you want it, how round you make it your own. Don't forget to send pictures of your finished wool dryer ball to sarah.thomas@uconn.edu, and you can make whatever you want with it. You could do a keychain, necklace, however unique and creative way you'd like to use your ball is up to you. Just remember, probably not the best idea for an actual dryer because this is a scaled down, smaller model. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.